Hello everyone, welcome back to Nasedyanka, the channel where I talk about Bulgarian history, culture, traditions, and faith. So this is episode 15, part 4, and this is continuing. It's the continuation of an article by Ivan Trenev, a Bulgarian journalist and researcher whose information impressed me, and it covers up with a lot of other historians and researchers in our country with their discoveries. So his article is called The Bulgarians Are at the Basis of Human Civilization, and the website I'm including in the comments section of this episode and part. In previous parts, I included all of the information that I have researched. So if you're interested in absolutely everything that, as far as I've been able to concoct up to this point for the purposes of YouTube, my channel, feel free to look at episode 15, and then the parts go from 0 introduction through 1, 2, 3, and so forth. But now I'll just shorten it and keep it down to this particular article. So I'm going to talk to you about the Bulgarian ancient cities that have been clearly spotted by satellite in our modern day and era. And basically these are cities that most school books don't talk about. Historians are keeping somehow in a secret, I guess. But people don't seem to know about them in popular culture. And also you will learn about what the ancient Indian and Chinese books actually tell us about the Bulgarians. And yes, my tone is excited and surprised because this again comes as a surprise to a huge chunk of people, myself included. If my channel is triggering to you, because by this time, those of you who follow my channels know already that I talk about hard topics and hard issues about Bulgarian history and religion and a lot of things that surround these, again, heated topics. If this is triggering to you, don't watch it. Nobody obligates you. If this is, however, a part of your interest, definitely feel free to subscribe and follow along. I think this is just to say, mostly because I use this channel as my hobby, my personal hobby, but I also have a full-time job, and if you recognize me from there, please know always that my hobby has nothing to do with my job. These are unrelated. With this, I send you my respects, and I'm going to continue here with our topic today. So during the period of time between 1965 and 1998, with the help of satellite photos, scientists actually discovered in the region of the southern Urals and western Siberia a part of the ancient Bulgarian civilization, which is located on an area measuring, so I translated the measurements from kilometers in miles, that's 93 miles by 248.5 miles, and kilometers, Google told me it's, the article told me it's 150 by 400 kilometers, but Google translated for me miles. So far, 17 cities with 21 fortresses have been discovered in that region. The ancient cities of the Bulgarians are interesting because they have the shape of oval figures, and those examples of those are, for example, Aldansko, or in English you guys would say Aldan, but in Bulgarian we conjugate even the areas, the names of our cities. So Aldan, Aldansko, that's the same one city. Isine, Bersaut, and Kizil or Kizilsko, like we would say in Bulgarian. The later Bulgarian cities dating from 5000 BC are shaped in a circular or round figure from, again, up above from satellite. Those are Arkaim, Sintashta, Sarum, Sakla. Interesting. Arkaim, or Kale city, is the sacred city for the Bulgarians that was built with highly advanced technologies for its time. So the Bulgarian cities were built with monumental defense facilities, with communication systems, and exceptional layout. The construction material of the buildings is known to modern science. And again, you guys, we're going back within the last 17,000 years. It always blows my mind, and I go back to the days when I immigrated in a foreign Western countries, and I was asked, but do you guys in Bulgaria have pipes? Do you guys in Bulgaria have any history? Do you guys in Bulgaria? I try not to get affected, but it is very hard to not get affected by things like that. And just, it grieves me how much our society doesn't know historic facts such as these. So going back to Trenev's article, he reminds us that the shape of the city is also a circle with exact rays that start from the center to the periphery. So circle, the rays start from the center of the circle, go to the periphery. And the circular structure is also typical of other ancient cities, by the way, that were built around the world in the same structure and the same idea. And so it has a hydrotechnical system. That's what it served also for. Arkaim, again, the city of Arkaim, was built as a single complete complex, which also had a precise orientation to astronomical objects. Unknown engineering tricks, sites poured from cement with an unknown composition, extraordinary layout. All this is typical of the Bulgarian civilization from the beginning of the now known human history and humanity, I would say. Several inquiries actually were received from the USA, to which the Russian side, in the person of an archaeologist by the name of Zdanovich, replied that the leading city, Arkaim, was the holy city of the ancient Bulgarians. The Volga Bulgarians, and if you guys remember from previous episodes, I've mentioned that the ancient Bulgarians used to create not just cities, but entire countries with capitals, and they would name them according to the rivers by which they would settle. So Volga is a river in nowadays Russia, so they were called the Volga Bulgarians. So coming back to the article, it informs us that the Volga Bulgarians, who have survived actually to this date, and it's very much, again, few people know about this, currently know about these cities. So the Volga Bulgarians know about these existing cities, but the Russian authorities have so far not allowed them near them. And those of you who know me will also know that I never speak ill of my brothers and sisters. I love all nations and all cultures. And I can talk about this sometime in the future. I think that YouTube would not like me very much if I actually disclose too much of the truth. But let me come back to this article here. So Loyan was called the capital of the Zhou dynasty. Now we're talking Chinese regions, from the 11th to the 2nd century BC. It was created by the eastern wing of the Bulgarian Huns. In other words, also another title it's that the article associated with is the Xianbians. The keeper of the archives there was Lao Tzu, the old sage most people are familiar with. The Chinese do not have the letter U, so in Bulgarian language we have a letter we call U, and so for this transliteration purpose, the hieroglyph in the Chinese system was invented, which is Z, DZ. So it was taken basically directly from the Bulgarian glagolithic script. In earlier episodes, I spoke about the brothers Cyril and Methodius, and I mentioned the difference between the Cyrillic alphabet and the Bulgarian glagolithic, all of which stem from the Bulgarian original script. So feel free to refer to my earlier episodes. And you'll recognize that by the title on Saint Cyril and Methodius and the Cyrillic alphabet. So there they also call him Boyan or Bogar, which is a Bulgarian name. He is the founder of Taoism, as we know, of Doa and Du, which stands for Way of the Universe and Moral Law. Tolstoy said that this book was the greatest book of the world, according to his own humble opinion, I guess. The yin and yang sign is actually Bulgarian and not Chinese, in the sense of unity. China's luminary of wisdom, Lao Tzu, was in fact a Bulgarian, our researchers inform us. Among his Bulgarian students is Confucius, who later tried to introduce in the imperial court a synarchic rule characteristic of the Bulgarian states. So how do we know about this? How do our historians, researchers, and so forth know about this information? Well, like Ivan Trenev has informed us in some of his interviews, but also the other researchers write in books, those are Bulgarians, but also foreigners, who travel around the world. They open their personal membership in particular libraries, like in Great Britain is one of the examples that Ivan Trenev had discovered a lot of the basis for his research. But other libraries around the world count as well. And so they find traces of, what did the ancient people call the Bulgarians? How did the ancient Greeks refer to the Bulgarians? Myself included, I once went to an acupuncture practitioner who was from Korea, and he had tons of information about Bulgarian history, which I had not been taught in my own Bulgarian country about. So there are people around the world who know. Many Native Americans know, and I've mentioned I'll cover that again in the future. I should say Hindus know as well. I did go to a Hindu temple once, and their priest told me that Bulgarians were written about in their ancient scriptures. And I was fascinated because not for religious purposes, although I can talk a lot about religion, but from a historic perspective, those are scripts that have preserved gems of history that many of our modernists are ignoring. Coming back to the article, it informs us that in India, they actually called Lao Tzu Boyan, also known as Boganatar or Bulgarian. Among his disciples are the so-called awakeners, Buddha and Babaji. The Buddha is a historical person, and the secular name of the Buddha Gautama is Prince Siddhartha, prince of the Scythians, the core of which were actually, again, the Bulgarians. So the Brahmanical or the Buddhist teachings were taught by Proto-Bulgarian initiates. At the age of 96, Boyan, again his Indian name, in China called Lao Tzu, left China during temporal decay, and he headed to the ancient Bulgarian country or the state called of Shambhala. Now, Bulgarians talk a lot about Shambhala. Russians have talked a lot about this. It's just interesting because from purely historical purposes, once again, this information has not been popularized. In the 5th century BC, the Brahmin Panini, born in the capital of Bactria, again, this stands for Bulgaria. Bactria is another ancient name for Bulgaria, created the world's first Sanskrit grammar and recorded it in the Mahabharata. This is one of the scriptures of the Indians, of the Hindus. Bactria was inhabited by white sages of Bulgarian origin, brought by the great Rama, and its capital was called Bulg. Again, you guys, in previous episodes, or parts of my 15th episode at least, I've talked about how Bulg is the root for anything that belonged to the Bulgarians. So any name that was conjugated that contained the letters B-U-L-G indicated that those were lands and or creations belonging to the Bulgarians. It was from there that the Bulgarian Brahmins, carrying the Vedic knowledge, entered India and dictated the sacred ancient Indian books in Sanskrit. Perfect, sacred, and hidden according to the transliterations there. So I'm going to include a separate article in the future talking about what Pavel Serafimov actually says and has researched with regards to the Vedas and their connection to Bulgarians. But for now, I can tell you that these Bulgarian books are called the Vedas, and Vedas is another Bulgarian word which comes from Vidya, the Vidya, Vishdam. It means to see, in other words, to know by seeing. When we say in Bulgarian language, Vishdam, yeah, I see, it actually means I know, I understand. Coming back to Ivan Trenev's article, he informs us that the Bulgarians introduced the caste system, Buddhism, as well as the sacred books of the Buddhists. The Bulgarians built the Buddha statues that were later destroyed by the Taliban in Afghanistan. The Bulgarians created the unique 37-degree state hierarchical system and the perpetual calendar. We'll talk about the calendar once again shortly in another part, but I already covered it in earlier episodes, so feel free to research that in my videos. About the Shambhala, again called Bactria, which stands for Bulgaria, the Indian epics Mahabharata and Ramayana say that it was the greatest country of sages and teachers called Guris. Side note, let's see if I wanted to mention to you guys something. Of course, yeah, I just wanted to make a side note here just to bring to your attention that, yes, Orthodox Christianity has played an indelible part of Bulgaria, especially since it's been introduced. But we're speaking here about 17,000 years ago when there was paganism. As a matter of fact, paganism is a derivation of ill-understood historical facts and scientific knowledge. We're speaking here about 17,000 years ago when we had a highly civilized, highly developed civilization that brought information to other peoples around, and later on those peoples inevitably over the thousands of years, I mean things change over 100 years, over a decade, let alone thousands of years, they mixed and matched, changed some of those things. But you can find a trace in with regards to how the language has been used and what again this knowledge has been. You can find commonalities, which is again precisely what I'm talking about here. Let's not forget that Bulgaria, ancient Bulgarians, were the originators of the first monotheistic religion in the world, which presupposes and prepares people to accept the Orthodox Christian religion, and I speak about it in another episode. So the Indian epic says that Shambhala, again in ancient Bulgarian means many shamans or many elder teachers, was a country north of India with thousands of caves and secrets. According to the geographical maps, ancient Bactria, again meaning Bulgaria, was located in this place, one of the nicknames of which is exactly the land of many caves. Simple, right? So, I'm going to end here this fourth part of our episode 15. In part 5, we're going to actually talk a little bit about the calendar and the oldest script in the world. Again, these are parts that I have already covered in previous episodes, but I wanted to share with you from the perspective of Ivan Trenev, again, sticking here to the article that I currently am translating and sharing with you guys. Stay tuned and continue to share your questions and comments, which I deeply appreciate. And if you're interested again, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you for your time and attention, and I hope that you have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.